the key foreign policy vote of modern American history was the war in Iraq. The progressive community was pretty united in saying, don't listen to Bush, don't go to war. Secretary Clinton voted to go to war.
We may have been in the minority today, but I have no doubt that we are representing the vast majority of the people who are scared to death about the possibility that the United States could set a precedent of a unilateral invasion of a country which could trigger disastrous results from China, Russia, and every other country in the world, who will then say, if the United States thinks it can go to war anytime it wants, why can we in China not do the same? We in Russia not do the same.
Russian troops have moved into Ukraine and Crimea. Specifically, only moments ago, the President of the United States, unscheduled, went into the White House briefing room to issue a strong warning to Russia. There will be costs, the President says, of any military intervention in Ukraine.
Let me give you 5 reasons why I'm opposed to giving the President a blank check to launch a unilateral invasion and occupation of Iraq, and why I will vote against this resolution. 1, I have not heard any estimates of how many young American men and women might die in such a war, or how many tens of thousands of women and children in Iraq might also be killed. 2nd, I am deeply concerned about the precedent that a unilateral invasion of Iraq could establish in terms of international law and the role of the United Nations.
So, I mean, that is the land of unconfirmed.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
3rd, the United States is now involved in a very difficult war against international terrorism, as we learned tragically on September 11th. We are opposed by Osama bin Laden and religious fanatics who are prepared to engage in a kind of warfare that we have never experienced before. 4th, at a time when this country has a $6 trillion national debt and a growing deficit, we should be clear that a war and a long-term American occupation of Iraq could be extremely expensive. 5th, I am concerned about the problems of so-called unintended consequences. Who will govern Iraq when Saddam Hussein is removed? And what role will the U.S. play in an ensuing civil war that could develop in that country? Will moderate governments in the region who have large Islamic fundamentalist populations be overthrown and replaced by extremists?
This is a very difficult vote. This is probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make. Any vote that might lead to war should be hard, but I cast it with conviction.
It's very important for people going through the changes that are sweeping the region, and that Iraq has in many ways been a leader in demonstrating, to believe and to see that democracy delivers. Is your life better or not? Do your children have a better opportunity or not? And so it's time for the United States to start thinking of Iraq as a business opportunity. The greatest untapped resource in the Middle East and North Africa are its people. There's no doubt about that.
I think it was in November in Ohio. You may recall this.
Yes.
I don't know the context of it, but Secretary Clinton said, some people call me I'm paraphrasing, some people call me a moderate, and I proudly, say that I am a moderate. That's what she said.
I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
I'm a progressive who likes to get things done. And I was somewhat amused today that Senator Sanders has set himself up to be the gatekeeper on who's a progressive, because under the definition that was flying around on Twitter and statements by the campaign, Barack Obama would not be a progressive, Joe Biden would not be a progressive, Jeanne Shaheen would not be a progressive.
I'll stand with President Bush on national security, the war on terrorism, and to disarm Saddam Hussein.
Even the late, great Senator Paul Wellstone would not be a progressive.
Mr. President and colleagues, I rise to address our policy in Iraq, authorizing the preemptive, go-it-alone use of force right now which is what the resolution before us calls for, in the midst of continuing efforts to enlist the world community to back a tough new disarmament resolution on Iraq, could be a very costly mistake.
And one of the major characteristics of Paul Wellstone is that he understood that the way we succeed politically in this country is not simply by going out to the wealthy and the powerful begging for more and more campaign contributions, which is what happens so often in Congress, but he understood that the way you can win elections is by rallying ordinary people at the grassroots level. The vision that they brought forth is something that I hope that I will do my best to continue advocating for. His loss was a loss for the working people of this country, for the vast majority of the people of this country, and for the United States Senate, and I will not forget what Paul Wellstone stood for.
I do not know any progressive who has a super PAC and takes $15 million from Wall Street. That's just not progressive.
One of the things that Senator Sanders points to, and a lot of your critics point to, is you made 3 speeches for Goldman Sachs. You were paid $675,000 for 3 speeches. Was that a mistake? I mean, was that a bad error in judgment?
Look, I made speeches to lots of groups. I told them what I thought. I answered questions.
But did you have to be paid $675,000?
Well, I don't know. That's what they offered. So.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think one of these big banks paid you over $200,000 for a speech?
Well, look, I gave speeches to a wide array of groups, from healthcare groups to auto dealers and many, many more.
I mean, they're not giving me very much money now, I can tell you that much. Fine with me.
I represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes.
But, you know, anybody who knows me, who thinks that they can influence me, name anything they've influenced me on. Just name one thing.
One of the first bills that came up after she was Senator Clinton was the bankruptcy bill. This is a bill that's like a vampire. It will not die, right? There's a lot of money behind it. And
bill her husband had vetoed.
Her husband had vetoed it very much at her urging.
And?
She voted in favor of it.
Why?
As Senator Clinton, the pressures are very different. It's a well-financed industry. You know, a lot of people don't realize that the industry that gave the most money to Washington over the past few years was not the oil industry, was not pharmaceuticals. It was consumer credit products. Those are the people, the credit card companies have been giving money, and they have influence.
And Mrs. Clinton was one of them, as senator. Yeah.
She has taken money from the groups, and more to the point, she worries about them as a constituency. You know, this is the scary part about democracy today. We're talking again about the impact of money. And as their profits grow, they just throw more into lobbying for how they can get laws that will make it easier and easier and easier to drain money out of the pockets of middle-class people.
Wow.